Yes, guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And this week, the Champions League is back. It is returning. And Chelsea kick off their campaign away at Dinamo Zagreb in Croatia tomorrow night. Plenty to get into, as always. New contract for Reece James, new contract talks for Mason Mount and Edouard Mendy. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang has travelled with the squad to Croatia. Denis Zakaria has also travelled, so both of those could be in line for their debuts. And we're just a bit of a discussion about the Champions League in general, so plenty to get stuck into. But George, first things first, mate. Reaction to the big news. Reece James has signed a new 6-year contract at Chelsea. We saw on Friday, I think it was, or possibly Saturday, that Armando Broja had signed a new 6-year contract. And now today, the big one. Reece James confirmed 6-year contract at Chelsea. Massive deal this. Really important to get him tied down. 6 more years for Reece James. 2 seconds, let's just get him back in. Yeah, sorry, mate. Just saying, 6 more years for Reece James. We saw, obviously, Armando Broja sign a new 6-year contract on Friday or Saturday, I think it was. Reece James' new contract, 6 years, signed today. George, your thoughts on this, and how important is it to see Chelsea under this new ownership group going down the route of securing young talent on long-term contracts?
Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's great news. I think it's just as important as keeping the quality players at the club signed on long-term, if not more important than actually the new signings coming in, because he's one for the future. I listened to your post-match analysis yesterday, and he's certainly a future captain of the club. I agree with that. And I think there's no argument now. I generally do think he is the best right back in the country because of the all-round package. Definitely improved his defensive attributes. So good going forward. And we're blessed to have him at the club. And I think it's one of the first things as new owners and as managers you need to be able to do to tie those players down, because we need to build around that so-called new spine. We had such a good old spine in the day with Cech, Terry, Ashley Cole, Frank Lampard, Didier Drogba, the like. So he'll certainly be one of those in this new era. And 6-year deal. I know contracts don't mean an awful lot these days, but I think that's a huge commitment from himself that this is the club for him.
Yeah, no, 100%. And, obviously come through the ranks, he's come through the academy. Obviously his sister plays here as well. Future captain, we feel. I mean, I can't really see him potentially really playing anywhere else. Obviously, things do change, but you think, particularly the lads that have come through the academy and stuff that have established themselves in the first team, you think they'd very much be here for, if not all of their careers, the vast majority of it. Obviously, Broja signed a new 6-year contract as well, which is great to see. Another young up and coming player who actually did very well when he came off the bench at the weekend against West Ham. I mean, it's not something we're used to seeing, is it, though, George? Like Chelsea offering long-term contracts to players. But as you rightly say, it's an important thing because we are building for the future. And as well as, getting players in, it's important to make sure that the talented ones you've got, they're locked in long-term. Because we've seen before, with situations like with the likes of Christensen, with the likes of Rudiger, the likes of Kante and Jorginho now, that, if you don't tie these guys down or offer them new contracts and stuff and get that security, then there's a chance you can get yourself in some issues and then end up having to spend a lot of money to replace guys that should have been tied down in the first place.
Yeah, it was a lesson to learn last season, particularly with Rudiger. We had a world-class centre-half, if not one of the best performing centre-halves in the league, on our books, and to allow him to go on for nothing. I know Real Madrid are a big club, but I think he would have been happy at Chelsea. I just don't think Chelsea planned for it and allowed his contract to run down. And then all of a sudden the positions with the agent and the players' preferences. And, we can't have that happening again. So, again, if Chelsea want to close the gap and, go for titles and continue to win things, you need to keep your best players at the club. And James is certainly one of the first, if not the first name on that sheet when you look at players that you must keep and the best that we've got. And so I think lesson learned the harsh way with last season and how it panned out. But I mean, this is great news all round for all parties.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I'm building for the future as well. And we've got such a great young core of defenders now as well. The likes of Wesley Fofana, and he's 21 years of age. Reece James in his early 20s as well. Cucurella, only 24. We are building. We're building for the future, which is great. I mean, George, just quick thoughts on also Armando Broja new contract as well. Not featured an awful lot this season. I felt he's been good when he's come off the bench. Obviously, we'll get into our team later, but I feel he deserves to start tomorrow night. But again, slight questions about his commitment in and around pre-season when he was looking to try and get a move to West Ham. That ultimately didn't happen. How do you think? Are you excited by him staying as well? Do you think there's a potential good player in there? I mean, Thomas Tuchel wanted to keep him, so they obviously see something in him.
Yeah, definitely. He's intrigued me. I think he's someone that I want to see more of in a Chelsea shirt. And we haven't seen an awful lot of him. And there was talk that perhaps he was trying to find first team football elsewhere. But I think he's got something to add. And like you can see, I think Tuchel likes his intensity and his work rate off the ball, which I think is part of the system, part of the way we play. And he's a bit of an unknown quantity for us. So, and the fact that we're quite light up there as is. I know Aubameyang's come in, but he's still, at least a couple of games off from playing. So Broja's got a point to prove, and I think he certainly can add value to this squad.
Yeah, no, mate, I totally agree. I think he certainly can, and it's a delight to see that we're signing these new contracts, getting these players tied down, and we're building a new spine that is going to take Chelsea into the next sort of 4, 5, 6 years, which again is really important to keep that next generation coming through when kind of the older guard come to an end. But in terms, just sticking with contracts, mate, Matt Law reporting in the Telegraph today that next up, having signed Broja and Reece James, Chelsea to step up Mason Mount contract talks, and there's also been talks of a contract extension. Preliminary contract talks have also been held with Edouard Mendy. I mean, do you think it sort of makes sense, George, Mason Mount to be the next one of these players to kind of be tied down on a new long-term deal?
Oh, yeah, without a shadow of doubt. One of our best performers, if not the best performer last year for us.
Well, player of the season last 2 years.
Yeah, and I think for me, he screams Chelsea. I mean, he just loves the club. You can see from, the videos that were sent out of him as a young kid practicing his free kicks at whatever it was, the age of 8. And, now playing in the first team, it's a dream come true for him. And I think he's the next in the list to play. And I think he'll be here for a long time as well. And we've got to build around these players if we are to improve and close that gap.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I mean, it's the obvious one. I mean, they're saying that they're kind of, the quote, I can't remember the exact quote was, but they're renewed efforts. I mean, does that suggest to you that they perhaps put something on the table already and he wasn't happy with it and he didn't sign it? I know there's been no news of that, but kind of renewed efforts for a new contract kind of would perhaps suggest to me that that wording or terminology would be that perhaps they had offered something, a proposal that Mount wasn't happy to sign. Maybe. I mean, would you? I mean, maybe I'm like completely getting that wrong, but it's it's a slight odd terminology which does suggest that perhaps there was something offered previously that he hasn't signed.
Perhaps, and when you said yesterday that considering how good Reece James is, he was only on about a 60k a week package. Maybe there is a bit of restructuring that needs to go on at the football club where we need to assess what they've achieved as individuals and at the club for the last couple of years and their value. And again, you're looking at those two players in that image there. I mean, they are becoming the new spine of Chelsea Football Club and therefore deserve to be warranted, good pay packages and a massive new deal. And I mean, they have every right to say that. It's particularly in the world of today with footballers earning so much money. I think it's fair to say that, well, certainly Reece James's one should have been at least doubled, if not more.
Well, it's more than double now. I think Reece James is going to become the highest paid defender at the club, and I think the highest paid defender possibly in Chelsea's history as well. He's going to be about 250k a week with that new 6-year deal.
It's not bad, isn't it?
It's all right, that, isn't it? I wouldn't mind signing that. It's all right. Not a bad day, that, is it?
Yeah, it's not bad to walk into the office and get that as sign a pen. I might do that. Yeah. So Mason Mount's the same. I mean, he's got to be in that 6-figure, and whatever that number is, it's got to match his. He's got to be happy with it. And, let's forget, footballers, I know that people say it's greedy and all the rest of it, but they do have quite short careers and they need to squeeze every ounce that they can get, particularly when they're at the top of their game, which those two players are at the moment. And so, I don't know if the wording was slightly off or whether there was some validation in that, but no, they definitely deserve a big deal. There's no problem.
And in terms of Edouard Mendy preliminary talks held over a new contract potentially for him. Obviously, he's not in the best of form at the moment. He's going through a difficult time. But given kind of the contract he came in on at Chelsea and what he's actually achieved during his time at the club as a whole, I think a new deal probably does make sense to him. Would you agree with that? Or are you looking at an overall picture of what he's achieved since he's been here, not just kind of the past few months, back end of last season, where it has been a struggle? I think he probably does deserve a new deal if you're looking at the bigger picture of everything he's done in his time here.
Yeah, perhaps. I mean, I don't know. You might be able to shed some more light on this than I know, but I don't know what his contract was initially in terms of a wage package or how long he signed for. I can't quite remember. But the goalkeeping position is one that you need to get sorted. And we have, despite having a lot of good goalkeepers at the football club, it's actually been quite an area that we haven't been stabilised for quite some time. We've only had Courtois for a few years. He left after Czech. It's been a position that we've had to chop and change quite a lot. Kepa coming in for a couple of years as a number one and then having to go as a second choice. So whether Mendy, again, I agree with your comments yesterday. Is he a title-winning goalkeeper? Remains to be seen, potentially. Does he warrant a new deal this early on? That's probably one that I've probably got an asterisk over.
He's under contract until 2025.
So you're looking at
three years left on the deal,
with most of 2022 done as well.
Yeah.
Got about 6 months till then. I suppose so, and I think for in terms of it's a key position, and you need to have it tied down regardless of what you're going to do. And I can't see Chelsea again going out and spending lots of money on a new goalkeeper in the short term. So it probably makes sense to tie him down.
Yeah, I think so. Look, he's not in the best form, as we know, but yeah, I think to get him tied down on a contract, we've got Kepa still here as well. We've got two decent goalkeepers, as we say. It's arguable is Mendy. Mendy right now is not good enough with his feet, for sure. With the way that the goalkeeping is evolving and stuff, he's not good enough with his feet, and his distribution is not good enough. I just think he's a bit low on confidence. I think there is a good goalkeeper there. We've seen it, but I think when he was playing really well, everyone, myself included, getting on the bandwagon, I was the best goalkeeper in the world. He was never the best goalkeeper in the world. Let's be perfectly clear. This was a good goalkeeper that was playing very well, and now we've got a good goalkeeper that is not playing so well. Mendy's never been a world-class goalkeeper for me, really. He's a good goalkeeper that has played very well, but not world-class for me. And I think we kind of overhyped him a little bit potentially, but he's a very good goalkeeper. But yeah, it's easy to get a little bit carried away with these best in the world shouts. Very solid goalkeeper, but I think there's definitely room for improvement in several key areas of his game. But mate, before we sort of start talking about Champions League and stuff, I just wanted to move on to a couple of other things. I mean, for some reason, quite a lot of contract news today. I don't really know why. A little bit about N'Golo Kante and Jorginho, who, like Rudiger and Christensen last summer, are both out of contract at the end of this season, both into the last years of their deal. And there's Arkan Seller at the Standard reporting that Thomas Tuchel has asked N'Golo Kante to compromise on terms as the club's second highest paid player due to concerns surrounding his ability to overcome increasingly chronic fitness issues. I mean, George, do you think that seems pretty fair to me. Do you think that's reasonable, right thing to be doing? If Kante is going to re-sign, it's got to be on drastically reduced terms, given the amount of football he's missing through his injury record.
Yeah, I guess so. I think the only thing that perhaps is contradictory to that is that Thomas Tuchel keeps referring to him as a key player.
Yeah.
So then, if Kante has an agent, he probably hears that word key player and thinks, well, if he's that key, you'll pay what we ask, regardless. But seems like a very humble bloke. I mean, it's not exactly the worst news in the world being the second highest paid player, is it? I mean, it's not exactly a big drop. I know, doesn't he still drive a Mini for some reason?
No, I think he does.
Yeah, and look, I think eventually you have to accept that, for age and the injury issues, Chelsea aren't prepared to, pay as much as they did. And I think that's fair from a business point of view. And I hope that doesn't disrupt Kante's decision-making and wanting to sign for the club, because I still do believe he's a key player. I think he's irreplaceable at the moment when he's on his best form. So, and I think we've seen that. I think we seriously miss him at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know Kante's a key player, but it's hard to be a key player when you're missing 40% of the games every season. Like it's that's where the two things don't really match up. Look, I'd be happy for him to stay, but it'd have to be on vastly reduced wages, and he'd have to play realistically. I don't think he's in fit enough to play week in week out anymore. I think the evidence is clear to suggest that, but I do think he's worth keeping about. And out of the two of him and Jorginho, I think I'd probably rather keep Kante. But again, he's gonna have to reduce his wage demands, and it'll be on a short term deal. I couldn't imagine Kante being offered more than 2 years. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a one with an option of a second, because at his age and his fitness concerns as well, I think that's kind of the best way to go about it. But one more thing on midfield, and that's on Jorginho. And I think it's thought that he's most likely to leave. But from the same article, Simon Phillips reporting that from the Zagreb Insider, there's concerns about whether Jorginho is running down his deal to move back to Italy, despite his insistence that he's ready to renew his contract. I mean, George, what are your thoughts on the situation we find with Jorginho? I mean, let's not make a mistake about it. He's got his critics, but he's been a very good player for Chelsea. You know, he came third in the Ballon d'Or. He's won the European Championships, he's won the Champions League. You know, he's done very well during his time here. So he's got limitations, we know that. It probably is time for him to move on. Do you think it's best that he goes, or out of the two, he's the one that's more likely to go?
I hope he's the one to go. I don't. If it was up to me, Kante would be staying. I think Jorginho is dispensable. I know that sounds quite harsh, but he's been a fantastic player all round. You know, for his country and clubs he's been associated with. And don't forget, Pep was very hot for his signature before he arrived at Stamford Bridge. And wanted him in the system. So that I mean, if Pep Guardiola is after him, then you can tell that he's a very good player. And he has had great games, but I just think Chelsea need to be a bit more expansive in midfield and a bit more forward thinking. And he does his job very, very well, but I just feel like he doesn't really offer a lot. And when he is bad, it's woeful. And he hasn't had the best of starts to the season. So for me, I think he probably is winding down his Chelsea to get a move back to Italy. That's probably the way I see it panning out. And if it was between him and Kante, it's a no-brainer for me. I think he's the one that has to go.
And I certainly can't see the club renewing both of those contracts, particularly with the likes of Conor Gallagher coming through, Loftus-Cheek still here. The fact that we're looking to sign a new midfield player still, a couple of midfield players. The club are looking to go back in January for Edson Alvarez. Todd Bowley prepared to give backing to bring in a new midfield player in January. So I think we'll go back in for Alvarez in January as well. So I cannot see both of them staying. I wouldn't even be surprised if both of them left either, if we're being perfectly honest. But before we get to the Champions League, we're just going to get to a few bits in the chat. What we got here is Zagreb will be a chance to rotate, try something different again, back four, midfield three. Yeah, potentially. But again, you've got to be careful in these Champions League games. You want to get off to a good start. So whilst this is technically probably the weakest team in the group, all away games are difficult in Europe. So yes, we will rotate slightly, but we don't want to take the complete piss. We saw us rotate quite heavily, and we drew 3-3 away at Zenit St. Petersburg. We lost in Turin against Juventus last season. I think we only won one of our away games in the group last season. So it just goes to show that whilst there will be room for rotation, you've got to take it seriously as well. Over goal machine gives Zagreb's defence problems. Hat-trick for him, an assist from Reece and Sterling. I mean, Aubameyang has travelled with the team, and he went to Milan to get a mask fitted, and Matt Law reporting that he has trained with the mask on and he feels comfortable. So the fact that Aubameyang's travelled, I think there's a chance that he could make his debut tomorrow. And I think those reports that he'd be out for 4 to 5 weeks are a little bit wide of the mark. And I'm a bit surprised that Barcelona weren't aware that players could play with a mask, it seems. But we've seen it with the likes of Rudiger, we've seen it with Fabregas. You can play with a mask. And the fact that Aubameyang's travelled leads me to believe that, do you know what? There is a potential that he should be on the bench, because otherwise, why would you travel? It's just a waste of time, if we're being honest. So the chance for Aubameyang to make his debut, yep, happy with that. Can't pronounce the name. I won't even try and do that. But please, is Kante's still injured? I think still a couple of weeks, 2, maybe 3 more weeks still for Kante. Unrelated news. Next Chelsea captain, probably Reece James. To be honest, I think Reece James is the standout contender. What we got here? Yeah, big up, guys. Yeah. Will our new striker play tomorrow? I've just covered that. I think there's a high chance could make his debut from the bench. Do you think Tuchel will start Sterling versus Dynamo? Sterling started every game this season. We got Fulham away on Saturday, lunchtime kickoff. I don't know. I'd probably stick with Sterling. And I do agree that we should give Kepa a chance. Yes. George, Champions League, it's back. We love this. It's the pinnacle of club football, the best tournament in club football. We won it a couple of seasons ago. Last season, we obviously had the heartache against Real Madrid in the Bernabeu, where we probably should have gone through. We've got our group now, RB Salzburg, Dinamo Zagreb, and AC Milan. Your thoughts on that group, and how do you see Chelsea doing this season? How important is the Champions League to the club this season?
I think it's a bit of an unknown quantity. You look at the first 5 or 6 games of the Premier League, and it has been a concern. And it's always going to be our priority to finish in that top 4. But I think Chelsea fans expected us to start better and to be probably in contention to close the gap. And therefore, my thought process on perhaps putting our eggs towards the Champions League has gone more towards that favour. Having said that, we've got a good record in the Champions League. I mean, we seem to have broken the curse in the last couple of years of the being faltering at the last 16 stage, which tended to hinder us for the last couple of years when we had Kante and the like. Very fortuitous group. We can't argue with that. I think other than AC Milan,
decent, yeah.
Other than AC Milan won Serie A, that's going to be a difficult home, and certainly in a away tie, you would favour us to finish top of the group, if not have to qualify. I think it would be a disaster if we didn't. But we're not playing well at the moment. But then again, people say you're not playing well. We didn't really play well in the league when we won it, so it doesn't necessarily transfer over to the big Champions League nights. And I think Chelsea just have something. Even when we were dire in the league last year, we still came to the Bernabeu and produced one of the best, nights of football I've seen.
3-0 up.
Yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable. And at that time, I don't think we were winning games in the Premier League. So I think there's just something about Tuchel, and there's something about the Champions League and our association with it, and even some of the players in the group who just prefer to play the European nights. And I think, therefore, we should be optimistic, but also realistic in equal measure. I think you have to have a lot of things go your way to get even close to the final. And, once you're there, you can start to talk about it. But until then, our job is to qualify, and simple as that.
Mate, how important do you think it is to top the group? I know you can top the group and you can get bang unlucky, or you can come second in the group and you can get a favourable draw. As you said, the most important thing is just to get out the group. Obviously, you want a more favourable draw in the last 16, but at the end of the day, if you're going to win the tournament, you've got to play the decent teams anyway. So it shouldn't really make too much difference. I mean, is it top of the group important for you, or do you think it's actually not as important as it has been in perhaps recent years?
It's a tough one, because finishing top of the group does set a precipice of standards and being like I think in cup is you need to have a certain amount of form as well, and belief and confidence. So if you're doing well in your group and you qualify, let's say you win 5 of the 6 games and you cruise through, you can then maybe play a few other systems or a few other players in the latter group games that might give you a little bit of a chance to then see, if things don't work out in a knockout game, how you can change it. But ultimately, you look at Real Madrid last season, for example, they looked like they were going to get knocked out in 2 or 3 stages of that event and managed to pull it out of the bag. Yeah. So sometimes I don't think having a great group or a great, finishing top of the group really even means that you're going to win or go on to win the tournament or be in the latter stages. But I think the manager's always going to set the tone that we want to qualify and qualify top. You're not going to go into a team meeting and saying, second will be all right, we'll take second now, because that just lowers the standards. But bottom line is, mate, no, you don't know who you're going to get in the knockouts. It doesn't necessarily mean the other top teams in the other groups finish top anyway. So you just play what's in front of you.
No, exactly that. I mean, mate, obviously, start to the Premier League season's been a little bit indifferent. Slightly lucky on the weekend to get the win. But having said that, we've won 3 of our first 6 games, 2 losses, 1 defeat. And we are only 5 points off the top of the league, despite everything that's been going on. And by our own standards, and we've said it as fans, that it's been a disappointing start to the season. But to only sit 5 points off the top of the table is not exactly too bad, given a difficult start to the season. Do you think with the Champions League starting up again, this is kind of a welcome distraction for Chelsea from the league and a chance to just, get a good performance and get a win under the belts and take some more confidence into the league now that the fixtures are coming thick and fast again.
You'd hope so, wouldn't you? I mean, it's been a mixed bag, to say the least, in the Premier League. The two bad defeats away from home, particularly struggling at home to grind out the results, but managed to do so. I think it is a welcome distraction. I think it's a new focus, and I think we've got such an illustrious history in this competition in such a short space of time that it is a welcome distraction from not just Chelsea fans, but the club. Certainly for some of those new signings as well who haven't played. Cucurella will be raring to go in the Champions League format. Sterling for a new club in the Champions League. So there's a lot of players also that are going to get a chance to showcase at the very top and why they signed for the club in the first place. So, tomorrow I expect nothing less than a Chelsea win, but it can be difficult, as you said.
It can be difficult. I mean, I would ask you about Dinamo Zagreb, but I know you don't know anything about them, and I know fuck all about them as well, other than the fact that obviously they're the best team in Croatia, and they did knock Tottenham out of the Europa League a few seasons back when Mourinho was there. I think they ended up beating them like 3-0 at home. So they've got pedigree to a certain degree, and it's going to be difficult. It'll be a packed house for them. It'll be a massive fixture for them. They've got a couple of half-decent players. I think Orsic, the attacking midfield player, is quite good, and I think that the goalkeeper's not bad either, but if we're being perfectly honest, it is a team that we should be comfortably beating. We'll get into the lineup in a sec, George, but do you expect there to be heavy rotation from Thomas Tuchel? I know we discussed on the channel before, like last season as well, where we were thinking going into Champions League group stage games and cup games and stuff, we were expecting quite a lot of rotation, but he tends to go with a pretty strong lineup. But do you think this is a good opportunity to rotate the squad, or is there, when it's the first game in the group, you want to get off to a winning start and perhaps he might go quite strong?
Yeah, I think he will go quite strong. I don't think you can take these games too lightly. And there's also the timing element, being the first group game, as you said, you don't want to then be chasing tails after one group game because you didn't get the result. And you highlighted some at the top of the show where we tried that and come unstuck. I mean, some of them weren't, necessary wins, but they're there on their own merit, and don't get us. And we've been terrible away from home so far this season. We've been absolutely battered in both games. Yeah. So we do need to start strong, and we need to play a strong lineup. That you'll probably see one or two new faces. Particularly, I'm starting to sway towards giving Kepa a chance, definitely. Yeah. But again, I mean, we don't know that. We probably suspect Aubameyang will play some form of the game if he's travelling. So does he start, or does he just come?
Well, I can't imagine him starting. I think I'd be shocked if he started.
Havertz will probably start because he finally scored, so you'd expect him to then be kept in the side. But I think it's going to be fairly strong tomorrow. I don't think he's going to take the mick.
No, I don't think you can afford to take the mick. I mean, mate, before we get into the lineup, we'll discuss it anyway. I want to get your thoughts on a goalkeeping situation. Obviously, Tuchel today, I don't know if it's today or when these quotes are from, it's fairly recently, when talking about Kepa. Obviously, Kepa was close to a loan switch to Napoli, but that kind of fell through. And Tuchel just saying he checked his options in the summer, which we were aware of. They are not satisfying for him or for us, so he stayed. I'm very happy about that. I was always clear with Kepa that I wanted him to stay. Obviously, that's the gaffer's words. I think Kepa's a good goalkeeper. He's had a tough time at Chelsea. I think he's done pretty well under Tuchel every time he's played, when he's been called upon. What do you make of the situation between the two keepers now? I think Kepa's going to be feeling, and rightly so, that he should be getting a few games. And I think also Mendy could potentially benefit from being taken out the firing line for a couple of games to perhaps just have a bit of a break and just regain his confidence.
I mean, I completely agree with you. But I've always said Kepa's a better goalkeeper than Mendy. I honestly believe that. I think he's
much better with his feet.
Better with his feet, a better shot stopper, I think, personally. Can he have a commanding presence in the box as much as Mendy? Possibly not. Is Kepa better at closing down, when players get through? Probably not. But I think his overall game as a goalkeeper is better. And I know Kepa's made a lot of howlers as well in his Chelsea time, but so has Petr Cech and all the rest of them. Goalkeepers make mistakes, and
it just gets highlighted more, doesn't it? Because generally, if you make a mistake as a goalkeeper, it's going to lead to a goal. Whereas outfield mistakes,
Yeah.
generally speaking, can go a little bit unnoticed. And if you end up winning the game, no one cares anyway.
Yeah, I remember loads that he made. I remember that one under Frank Lampard when Mane, he just played it straight, at Stamford Bridge and played it straight to him.
Completely fucked it.
But they all make it. But I think, Kepa's been from what we've seen, a great professional to stay as, to come in for a team of 70-ish million pounds as a first choice goalkeeper to then be sat on the bench for a couple of years, praying for opportunities. And, it wasn't just one mistake from Mendy. I think Mendy's been consistently poor since the start of the season, if not towards the end of last year. And yes, I know you can't keep chopping and changing it because that doesn't help the back line and that doesn't help, again, when you're trying to keep clean sheets. But I think it's got to a point where we need to twist and change.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, it doesn't mean that we need to say Kepa's now the number one goalkeeper. But I think, that's the whole point in competition for places. You need to give those players an opportunity and to say that actually, Mendy, you haven't been good enough. You need some time out and to earn your place back. Healthy competition is good competition. And Kepa deserves his chance. If not, when? Because, and I think this would be a good start from away against Dinamo Zagreb. I think it'd be good.
Yeah, I think so. I think Tuchel has shown that, despite insistence of picking players that aren't playing well, he can make big decisions. And at the weekend, we saw him dropping Jorginho, dropping Havertz, and dropping Mount to the bench. So he can make big decisions. Sometimes, even if we feel they're later than we'd like them to be, he does make them. So I think there's another big call that needs to be made. And I mean, it might help because Mendy could be injured. Potentially from the weekend. So that could be convenient to get Kepa in anyway. But the press conference is not till 6 o'clock, so he won't get the full news on Mendy's state. But I think he's travelled. I mean, the only ones that didn't travel were N'Golo Kante and Thiago Silva has been left at home as well. I think that's the correct call as well. Let's just get to a couple of things here. Too many errors recently, freshen it up. Yeah, fair, agreed. I think that's also another point. Defenders don't trust Mendy right now. There seems to be a lot of panic in and around the box. I mean, what we got here, I much believe Kepa is better than Mendy. Don't really know why. He's not highly rated. He's prone to mistakes, but his 1v1s are exceptional. Yeah, I think he's good. Mendy's lost confidence, not collecting crosses, looks fragile. I mean, George, do you think a goalkeeper lacking in confidence, do you feel that then transfers onto the back line? Do you think, I mean, I'm not saying Mendy's lack of confidence is why we're letting in so many goals, but do you think that does cause an issue, like causes a nervousness around the back line? And do you think it's why we may be conceding so many goals from set pieces as well?
Oh, I think that is the reason. I think you need a goal. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't see it. But in the games I've actually been to see him live, he's not particularly a vocal goalkeeper. I don't see him talk to his backline an awful lot. It's more the players coming to him. And at this point in the season, I've seen a lot of Thiago Silva coming up to him and having a go at him, saying, why aren't you claiming it? Why aren't you coming out to come and get these balls? Why am I having to track back? And we've conceded so many set pieces this season. I just don't think he's comfortable. And it's probably, other than maybe a striker not scoring goals, probably one of the loneliest and worst positions to be if you've got a lack of confidence. Because every single decision that you make and you're starting to question, it gets highlighted tenfold if you don't collect a ball or you spill it or you're not sure, on your distribution. It gets all a bit tarnished. And I know Tuchel has to be careful of how he deals with this situation, because if you kick a player while he's down on confidence and say, well, actually, you're out of the team and don't allow him the opportunity to get better, how is he going to then get his way back in? But I think he's had that opportunity to try and, eradicate those mistakes, and he's just got worse. So I think he needs time out. And, I agree with people in the chat as well. I've always said, and I think Kepa is a better goalkeeper. I generally do believe that.
Yeah, and I think that's fair. It's a big decision to be had, and I think it's one that needs to be done. I mean, there's always going to... Goalkeeper is weird, isn't it? That's like... You change other positions on the pitch, you rotate the squad, you drop players. Unless it's a big name, it doesn't really raise too many question marks. When you switch your goalkeeper, there seems to be massive coverage on it. I mean, do you think that's part of his thinking? Maybe not part of his thinking, but maybe why he's been a little bit reluctant to perhaps switch the goalkeepers before maybe today or tomorrow even, is because of the amount of media coverage it brings as well.
Yeah, and you don't want that to be a distraction for the players, or you don't want that to be highlighted as a big issue when it's not. And that's something that obviously, as a first team coach, he'll have to deal with, and that's his job to talk to both players and to see how to play it. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if he just goes for Mendy again, because I think if you're a number one goalkeeper, I think you have to allow that player to make mistakes and
but he's made a lot of mistakes.
Yes, but you still have to allow him to have a run of and I'm saying this from Tuchel's perspective. I'm me personally, I would change it. I think it's worthy of change, but I can see why. Because if you're just taking a goalkeeper just because they've made a few mistakes out of this team, but they're your number one goalkeeper and you keep chopping and changing, is that healthy for the back line and for the team? Always changing a goalkeeper. It's a very unique position compared to others on the pitch. I don't know, but I know Tuchel's very stubborn, so I wouldn't be surprised if he just carried on with Mendy anyway. But I think we need to give Kepa a go now.
Yeah, no, I fully agree on that, mate. Let's see what these in the chat. Mendy better overall goalkeeper, but Kepa better.
But why do you say that? Give me some reasons why you say.
Mate, I think in their best, like the big thing that Kepa's better at is his ball distribution. He's much better at that. I think the way he commands the box is perhaps not as good as Mendy, maybe not as big a physical presence, but I don't think there's an awful lot in them. But I think the way goalkeeping's going and the fact that you need to be good with your feet as a goalkeeper, you need good distribution. Mendy's really, really poor with his feet and really poor with his distribution as well, which is a big problem. Mendy won us, not doubting.
They did, let's be honest.
He didn't win us the Champions League, but he's won the Champions League with us, and and praised him rightly so. But at the moment, he's not in good form, and I think we would benefit from a switch between the sticks. Kepa's been so professional, deserves a chance. Mendy is part of the over 10 goals in this season already. I mean, George, just before we get into the team, are you a little bit alarmed about how many goals we've already conceded this season? Like we haven't kept a clean sheet for since the opening day of the season.
It's mad, and I can't put my finger on it precisely because I still, again, maybe I can't see it because I'm a Chelsea fan, but I still do believe now. Adding Fofana, I do believe. I know not everything's won on paper, but we do have probably the best back line in the league. So I really don't know why we're leaking so many goals. Is it the lack of discipline in midfield? Is it the change in formation? Is it, the goalkeeper not being confident? Probably a combination of all of those things. On top of the fact that some of those new additions to the side need time to settle in and work with the defensive coach and the players that they're playing alongside. But I'm really surprised at the amount of goals we've conceded this season. I'm not surprised by the lack of goals we've scored, but the amount that we've conceded the other end with the lineup we have. It's a problem that needs to be solved because that's what our whole foundation is built upon.
Yeah, we know that we don't score a lot of teams with goals. We know we're not the best team going forward. We build on a solid foundations from the back and hope we can get 1 or 2 goals and that'll be enough to win a game. We're never going to be a team that can outscore teams. It doesn't matter if we go 2-0 down or let 3 goals in. We're not like Manchester City where we can score 4s, 5s, and 6s. Letting 1 or 2 goals in means we're virtually no chance of winning the game. So, we've got to keep things tight at the back. But the set pieces one is the biggest concern for me. We really are struggling from set plays. And I don't really know what the reason is. Like, yes, there's a couple of new defenders in that back line. They obviously know how to defend set plays, but they might be getting used to Chelsea's way of defending set plays, getting used to a different goalkeeper, maybe getting used to a different way of doing things. But just every time a set piece comes in, there just seems to be complete panic in the box. And that's got to stop because letting cheap goals in from set plays is not a good habit to get into. It really is a bad habit that we need to get out of sharpish. When everyone is fit, do you think Cucurella is in the strongest 11? Depends. It's a difficult one. Possibly, but again, possibly not. Right, mate, let's get into the lineup then. George, we saw on Saturday against West Ham, Thomas Tuchel go the 3-5-2 system. We saw Gallagher, Kovacic and Loftus-Cheek in midfield, and we saw Sterling and Pulisic playing as a front two. Do you expect to see that again, or do you think we revert back to the tried and tested back 5, or do you think there's perhaps a chance of a back 4? And before you answer that, guys, if you're tuning in now, please keep smashing the likes on the stream. Let's get those likes up. Nowhere near enough likes for the amount of people that have been tuning in. So please smash the like button. And also please subscribe to the channel if you're new and you haven't done so already. On the road to 2K subscribers, not too far away now. So please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. Mate, formation-wise, what are you thinking? 3-5-2, as I said, against West Ham on the weekend. We've seen the back 4 a number of times this season. What do you think? Back to a 3-5-2? Back to a 3-4-3?
It's not ideal when you're on a podcast and you're supposed to make thoughts and give your opinions, but my honest answer is I don't actually have a clue.
Well, what would you go? This is what we would go. I think I'd probably go with this.
I would go with a 5 on the basis that you're playing away from home in the Champions League, and we need to play a system that we're most accustomed to. But I think out of any formation that I would counteract that with, he'd probably go with the same as we did against West Ham, just because I think we did control the game a little bit better. Apart from that, I know we still weren't very solid at all, but we still
didn't play well at all for 60 minutes. Last half hour, we did fair. Last half hour, mate, I actually think we switched the system.
Yeah, so I'm going with this. I think this is the best.
I think this is fair as well. Guys in the chat, obviously get involved as well with your selections and your thoughts on ours as well. We spent a bit of time discussing the goalkeeping situation, George. So I presume you're sticking Edouard Mendy in, yeah? Nah, it's
my thing. Kepa.
Yeah, it's minutes for Kepa. It's got to be. I think we are playing in the away kit tomorrow. I'm pretty certain. There is a small chance that we could actually play in our, as of yet, unreleased third kit, but I'm not sure if that's going to be happening or not. I think it's a safe bet to say that we'll be playing in the home kit. But George, for the reasons we discussed and for a freshness and a good chance to rotate, Kepa in between the sticks. Thiago Silva's not travelled with the squad. Correct decision for you, mate. We were saying that he should have been rested maybe a couple of Premier League games ago, maybe midweek in Southampton. We're saying he could have been rested. He's now obviously getting a decent rest, and makes sense to you.
Yeah, definitely. He needs it at some point. And again, looking at the fixture list, we perhaps did that a bit earlier. But away to Zagreb, we've got enough. We should have enough. And it's the whole. People forget it's the whole travelling thing as well that will probably take it out of a player. So it's not just resting them; it's the fact that he doesn't have to go with the squad, which is quite nice. So I think he deserves a break. Yeah,
100%. With that being said, then, mate, do you expect in the back three? Do you think obviously one player we're going to continue with Wesley Fofana?
Yeah, definitely.
What did you make of his debut on Saturday? I thought he looked pretty decent, pretty commanding debut. Looked pretty impressive.
Yeah, again, I was at the wedding like you were, so I didn't get to watch the game, unfortunately. But from the highlights that I saw, and obviously a lot that was circulating around, just highlights of him, very commanding. Looked like he was travelling the ball forward nicely. A lot of pace, which was what I really instantly saw in the highlights, that he was just quicker than the rest of the back line. Good debut.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, mate, there's a few options in this back line here. Obviously, Thiago Silva normally plays central centre-back. Fofana can also play there. But, I mean, would you like to keep Fofana on that right-hand side, or do you think there's an option that Koulibaly goes in the middle and then Cucurella plays left centre-back, which I think is perhaps most likely? Or do you think there's also a possibility that Fofana could play in the middle, Chalobah comes in for the right-hand side, and then Koulibaly keeps his place on the left-hand side? What do you reckon?
It's definitely a case that you can make for any of those.
Yeah.
But I think considering Fofana had a good debut, I'd probably keep him where he was. And I think Koulibaly being the slightly more, in stature, in size, probably a bit more commanding in the middle and less responsibility to make those recovery runs. So I guess he would be my case for the middle. And then, I would stick the same. I'd probably stick with Cucurella on the left. I think
that makes sense. I mean, to be fair, I wouldn't mind seeing Chalobah get some minutes. But again, this is our team and this is the one I would go with. But I could equally see potentially the other one being a possibility as well, with Fofana going to the middle, Koulibaly to the left, and Chalobah coming in on that right-hand side. I mean, George, Reece James just signed his new 6-year deal. Fully expect him to keep his place. Do you think he needs a rest? I'd personally say no. I mean, I definitely don't want to see Azpilicueta playing there. So I don't think Loftus-Cheek will go there either. So for me, Reece James is sure to continue.
Yeah, 100%. Don't think a player like that at his age needs rest. I think you just play him until, well, hopefully nothing bad happens, but he plays.
Yeah, definitely. And mate, Ben Chilwell looks like, for me, I think deserves to start this game. Left wing back. How pleased were you, mate, to see Chile come off the bench and have such a big impact on the West Ham game with the goal and the assist? And it's been difficult for Chile. Start of last season, he wasn't in the team at all. Didn't play at the Euros at all. Had to fight really hard to get back into the side. then had his injury, and now Cucurella's arrived, and he's struggled to get in the team, but he's making the most of the opportunities that he's been given, and I think he deserves to start this game. In this system, he'll have to start for us anyway, but how pleased were you to see him looking back to his best on Saturday, and a real big boost for his confidence?
Yeah, because it's always a difficult one coming back from such a horrific long-term injury to kind of get your way back in, and he's probably recovered quicker than I imagined. And I mean, you saw the goal. I mean, how he takes that.
The skill was unreal,
unbelievable. I mean, just watching him warm up and stuff. He's so slick, and he's such an just because I don't know. I feel like a lot of people underrate him as a left back. But I think he is turning into one of my favourite players at the club. I think he's fitted in so well since he's joined. And you look at all the bad press that Chelsea get for shit signings and they don't work out. I think he's been an absolute steal, really. And again, one that I hope will stay at Chelsea for the long term. But great goal at the weekend, and I hope he starts tomorrow.
And I think that what's it called? That competition with Cucurella coming in. I think that's so important to have good competition in those areas because it will drive those players on to perform better. Like Chilwell knows if he doesn't play well, Cucurella is going to take his place, and likewise, so it elevates the levels. I think that competition is really, really important in that area of the pitch, something we've not really had before. So I think that's a big plus and can only be a positive for the club, and it can be a positive for both players. I mean, George, moving into midfield then, we saw Loftus-Cheek, Gallagher and Kovacic start in midfield in a three-man midfield on Saturday. We've gone with a pivot for tomorrow's game. Who are your two choices there? For me, I think Mateo Kovacic will probably be one of those.
Yeah.
The second one is a bit more difficult. Would you agree that Kovacic is to be one?
Yeah, definitely. I think again he's one of those that's now he's fit. I think we've missed him so badly. I honestly don't believe we have as bad at the start this season if he's fit, just because he's so central to how we play. But the other one's completely up for debate. You could make a case for anyone. Big up, mate. I don't know. I really don't know.
It's tough, isn't it? I mean, I know you're not a fan of Conor Gallagher, but Tuchel's like I thought that was a big call and a big sort of big boost to Conor and how much Tuchel admires him and believes in him is that after two not so good performances, I mean against Leeds he wasn't great, and then obviously the red card against Leicester, he's then put straight back into line. I think it's a big boost for him in terms of what the manager thinks of him. I mean, do you think we'd see a Champions League debut from Gallagher, or do you think he's more likely to go with a bit more tried and tested Loftus-Cheek, or go with that Jorginho Kovacic pivot, which again it gives you a bit more experience, a bit more security?
I mean, I think I'm not talking about myself, but I think if you were any other Chelsea fan, you'd probably want to see Conor Gallagher play because of the hunger to play in a competition that obviously he's come back to Chelsea to try and fight for his place in. And you want that exciting young talent to play on the biggest stage possible, which is Champions League football. If Kovacic there, I'm probably perhaps happier that he would play if he was playing alongside him. But me personally, I'd probably go tried and tested and just play Jorginho, even though I've slated him for quite a while. But again, I'm not too bothered about this one. So I think you could make a case for anyone playing there. It was more Kovacic playing that role.
Yeah, it's a difficult choice, this one, isn't it? Guys in the chat, let us know who you'd go with, and we might just go with whoever's the most popular. So we'll leave that one to the end. Put your choices in the chat. Who you think should play alongside Kovacic in the pivot? I'd probably personally I'd probably just go with Gallagher. I don't think it will happen, but I just think I would go with him. But then I think Ruben's been playing really well recently as well. So yeah, there's a lot of names that we could get in there. But guys in the chat, let us know who you think we should go with, or who you think should play in that position alongside Kovacic. George, front three. One player for me that I think has to play is Armando Broja. New 6-year contract signed, had a really positive impact off the bench against West Ham. Perfect time for him to go in. Would you agree?
I would, but I don't know if he's going to play.
It doesn't matter if he's going to play or not. This is our team. You'd be sticking him in.
Yeah, he was involved in the winning goal, just playing it down the left to, I think it was Chile. Made a big impact when he came on. High energy. Got a point to prove again. Stayed at Chelsea probably under the premise that he's going to get some more minutes. And again, playing in the best and biggest competition in club football. He's going to want to make a statement, and we just want to see something different. I know Havertz got the winning goal, and that's a huge confidence boost for him, but I think Broja deserves a chance, and this is our team. And for me, I think it would be nice to see him play.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just back to the midfield, mate. The new signing, Dennis Zakaria, has also travelled with the squad. I mentioned it earlier. Yeah. It'll be nice to see him get his debut along with Aubameyang, but you would think that it's highly unlikely that Zakaria would be just chucked straight in after not too many training sessions. I would say unlikely.
I think the only way that he comes in is if we're winning, 3-4-0, he comes on for the last 5 minutes or whatever.
I think Zakaria could play 15, 20 minutes depending on how the game's looking like. I would expect him to make his debut, but again, it depends on how the game's looking. But George, would you expect Raheem Sterling started every Premier League game this season? I'm always a believer of start your best team and then take the players off once the game's done. I think I feel it's always a better way of doing it. Do you expect Sterling to start?
Yeah, it's going to be his first Champions League start for the Blues, so I'd expect
on that left-hand side.
Yeah. Again, people have been. I think he's gone about his business quietly. I don't think perhaps he's set the world on fire that people maybe expected, but certainly us two on the channel didn't expect him to set the world alight. We just knew that he was a good signing, and he has been. And I think this is going to be a perfect game for him again. I know I keep saying away from home we should be playing better. We've actually played worse, but he should get more space on the counter-attack. This is a lower level opposition, albeit in a big club competition. And, I still feel that he's going to get more opportunities tomorrow to showcase what he can do in a blue shirt. And I'd expect him to start. I
mean, we saw Christian Pulisic get a start on the weekend. Wasn't that great. Struggled to influence the game. Saw Havertz dropped. Ziyech, I don't think. I mean, you just never know. Ziyech maybe could play out. I'm not sure. I personally wouldn't pick him. George, on that right-hand side then, as we've got it, I mean, it will move around as an interchangeable three. It'll be on the right-hand side to start with for our side. But, I mean, Havertz or Mount for you, I can't see Pulisic starting, and I don't think Ziyech will start either. So it's very much a toss-up in this system between Mount or Havertz. What would you be going with? Both have been in poor form, really, this season. I mean, I know Havertz got the winning goal, but he hasn't been in great form at all. So what do you think, Mount or Havertz for you in this one?
I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I'd probably go with Havertz.
Yeah,
just because I would like to see how he links up with Broja and how he plays in a different role in that front three. And because he scored, the amount of times we've been slating him to get a goal. Well, to be fair, he's got a last-minute winning goal against West Ham. So you then, why would you then drop him? But then you think, well, Mount's always my first player on the team sheet, regardless of how he plays, but I've got to change that. So, I mean, I personally go for Havertz, but...
I mean, I've been bashing Havertz on this channel, but...
Yeah.
I think I probably would go with him.
I'd just like to see how he does with Broja playing up there as a together. I'd like to see.
Yeah, let's go with Havertz. I mean, it could almost end up being something a little bit like this. It could end up being like Broja, Havertz, and then Sterling maybe just floating around like that potentially. Yeah. So we could see something like that. Let's roll with that. That midfield position. Quite a few people in the chat saying Gallagher. I don't really know. Fuck it, let's go with Gallagher. Tuchel seems to like him. He seems to play. Let's just stick Gallagher in there. I fully expect it to be Jorginho. If I'm being totally honest, it'll be Jorginho all off this cheek, I think. But I'm gonna go with Conor Gallagher, and I think we might see. I would like to see that Broja and Havertz as a two with Sterling with kind of a free roam in behind there. So that's the team. George, one thing remains, mate. Score prediction tomorrow. We are the early kickoff. We're the early kickoff tomorrow. 5:45 kickoff in Croatia. I think that works well as well, considering we're early kickoff on the weekend as well, with an away trip in midweek. It's nice to play on the Tuesday and to play early. So 5:45 kickoff. Your thoughts?
I don't think it's going to be as easy as perhaps people expect. Just because of the way we've been playing away from home lately, and because we're missing some very influential players. Particularly Thiago Silva. I'd be very interested to see how the back line do without him, because he's been literally, hanging out, throwing out life jackets and lifeboats to the rest of them who are in there. If that's the team, Oof, God. I'm 2-0.
You go 2-0.
I don't. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be quite tough, regardless. But I still think we've got enough to win.
Yeah, I do as well. And I'm
But
calling.
so
I think we need a clean sheet as well. I'm calling the clean sheet to come. We can't get a clean sheet here. I don't know where we're getting a clean sheet. So I'm going to be a bit more bold. I think we're going to turn up. We might do these, and I want to go for a 3-0. I know that's a little bit sort of not out of the blue, but I think that's a 3-0. And I think we've got more than enough quality to do it. And then we can take players off and rest them for Fulham on the weekend once we've got the goals and we've got the situation sorted out in the match. Is Jorginho leaving? Potentially. If it was down to me, if we're going to bring in Edson Alvarez in January and Jorginho, I'd even contemplate selling Jorginho in January. I really would. If it means getting Edson Alvarez in, I wouldn't mind selling Jorginho in January. But yeah, George, what did you go again, mate? Sorry, you went
2-0.
2-0. I'm going to go with a 3-0. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. As always, really appreciate you all getting involved in the chat. Please, on your way out, smash those likes. Let's get those likes up. You've done well, but you can do better. So get those likes up. And also subscribe to the channel on your way out as well if you haven't done so already. We're heading towards that 2K mark, so every subscriber helps. So please do click that subscribe button on your way out. George, thanks for your time as always, mate. To be fair, we might actually be back with a match reaction tomorrow because it's an early kickoff. So, yeah, tomorrow evening, probable match reaction. But yeah, guys, until then, take care. Enjoy the rest of your day and up the Chelsea.